Features 2024 gold medalist Kaylee Copper, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, Derica Hamby, and Rain Howard. They won the 3x3 bronze medal at the 2024 Paris Games. Leah Boston, who represented the USA in many junior and senior competitions.
USA Basketball has officially announced its 12-player roster for the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament in San Juan. And everything begins with one simple question: who will run the offense? This lineup is a carefully balanced mix of experience and fresh talent. It includes Olympic and World Cup veterans, along with several first-time senior national team selections. The tournament runs from March 11th to March 17th, featuring a fast-paced 5-game stretch against Senegal, Puerto Rico, Italy, New Zealand, and Spain. The pressure builds because so many elite playmakers are sharing the floor. Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Caitlin Clark, and Paige Buchers can all initiate the offense, create scoring chances, and control the tempo. But there can only be one opening tip, one primary leader, and one tone setter. Traditionally, Team USA leans on international experience. Gray and Plum have already completed an Olympic cycle, and that experience matters when the court is tighter and the officiating is different. But this is where things become complicated. Clark is not just a young guard with freedom to shoot. She has already drawn some of the biggest television audiences the league has seen in decades, including a 2.1 million viewer debut on ESPN, a 2.25 million viewer FIBA vs. Sky matchup in 2024, and a 2.7 million viewer rematch on ABC in 2025. The responsibility of balancing all of this falls on Sue Bird, a decision-maker with deep UConn Huskies connections, who selected a roster featuring Buchers as one of the headline newcomers. So, the real stakes go beyond just naming a starter. It's about deciding which identity Team USA wants to establish in Puerto Rico, and which point guard becomes the face of that vision. Yet the subplot everyone keeps returning to is the Connecticut pipeline. Paige Buchers arrives with a story that feels built for this moment. The ACL injury is part of her journey, but so is everything that followed: the comeback, the rebuild, and her calm under pressure. That's why every national team opportunity for her sparks a deeper conversation. It's not only about talent. It's about succession, trust, and who the program believes in when the lights shine brightest.
USA Basketball Women's National Team Managing Director Sue Bird selected the roster and will continue to evaluate players prior to selecting a team for the 2026 Women's World Cup, which takes place September 4th through the 13th. The USA will be...
Now add in the key decision maker. Sue Bird holds final authority over this roster, and that authority matters because it turns roster fit into official policy. Reuters reported that Bird's role includes full power over roster and staff selections for this entire cycle. And her connections to the University of Connecticut are not speculation. They are history, built under Gino Auriemma and carried forward for decades. That's where perception begins to matter. Not because relationships are improper, but because the alternative option in this exact moment is Caitlin Clark, the strongest gravitational force modern women's basketball has ever produced for audience attention. As a result, any rotation decision can be interpreted as a statement, even when it is simply basketball logic. And the calendar gives this storyline a perfect stage. The tournament runs March 11th to March 17th in San Juan. The United States is already locked into the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup because continental champions receive automatic qualification. That reduces the immediate competitive pressure, but it increases the political pressure.
Derica Hamby, Rain Howard, Kiki Arifin, Kelsey Plum, Angel Reese, Jackie Young. I guess Breanna Stewart is not going to play in the qualifying round. So, yeah, people are pointing out no Asia, no Fee, no Stewie, no Alyssa Thomas. Well, let's just keep it real.
Because these games effectively become a public audition for future roles. ESPN reported that Bird will continue evaluating players before naming the final World Cup roster later, in 2026. Now look at the coaching staff, because the staff reveals how many priorities are in the room. Kara Lawson leads the group, assisted by Nate Tibbetts, Natalie Nakase, and Stephanie White. So if one guard starts while another comes off the bench, it won't just be a lineup choice. It becomes the first draft of a hierarchy. And once that draft becomes public, it has a way of sticking. Stephanie White is the coach who understands Clark's game most directly. She has coached against the defensive schemes designed to trap Clark. She's seen what happens when Clark plays with tempo, and she knows that Clark's greatest impact often appears upstream of the box score. The challenge is that the coaching staff can recommend, but Sue Bird's authority sits above the bench. Reuters describes Bird as the managing director with a full roster and staff power for this cycle, which means the final direction is not only tactical but also structural. Now examine the roster through what's missing. Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Alyssa Thomas. The players who normally define Team USA's nightly floor and ceiling are not here. That isn't controversy, it's strategy. Qualification is already secured, so these games become a laboratory instead of a rescue mission. FIBA's qualification format grants automatic World Cup entry to certain continental champions, meaning the US enters San Juan without must-win urgency. That absence of pressure changes everything. With the usual safety net removed, minutes become auditions for responsibility. Who can organize an offense without star insulation? Who can manage the whistle, spacing, and physicality, and still keep the offense flowing? And that's exactly why the Clark versus Buchers angle matters, more than many people want to admit.
Reese, Caitlin Clark dynamic on the court at the same time. That's always interesting. That's always going to be an interesting dynamic. Everything was fine there. They had a, if I remember right, Caitlin Clark had a pretty sick pass to Angel Reese during the that All-Star game, and it kind of went viral, to be honest. So,
Seeing Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in the same uniform again isn't about old storylines, it's about fit. Clark thrives when a big can run the lanes, punish switches, and finish in traffic. Reese thrives when the tempo generates extra possessions, and the guards feed the rim and the glass. If the staff leans into that pairing, it signals a modern identity. If they don't, it signals the opposite, a return to traditional pecking order basketball. You can already hear the soft launch explanation forming, a gradual handoff. Start Clark now, then transition to Paige Buchers once she's fully settled. It's convenient because it frames the choice as patient development rather than preference. But the logic gets tricky when measured against reality. Clark just carried the full weight of a WNBA season as the most hunted perimeter player in the league and continued to show up. Buchers, meanwhile, is returning from a long ACL recovery. No matter how talented she is, that context doesn't disappear because the calendar flips. Prioritizing narrative ease over performance risks looks like politics instead of basketball. In this ecosystem, perception doesn't wait for a full sample. The first rotation becomes the story. The first closing lineup becomes the headline, and post hoc explanations often feel like cleanup rather than clarity. This isn't just about 1 week in San Juan. It's a court audition for Berlin. The 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup runs September 4th to 13th, 2026, and the US is chasing a 5th straight world title, 12th overall if they succeed. That's why these qualifiers matter, even with qualification secured. They reveal the first public look at roles, pairings, and pecking order. First impressions stick. If Clark dominates in March, it's harder to justify reducing her minutes later. If Buchers starts and looks uneven, the conversation immediately shifts to optics. And if the staff split time too cautiously, they risk leaving San Juan without a clear identity or a dependable closing lineup. The international game also asks different questions than the WNBA. Three-point geometry differs, especially in the corners, which changes help angles and what "open" really means. Rim rules for goaltending and interference are interpreted differently, and physicality feels heavier because the game is structured to flow. Guards who create early advantages are rewarded, and defenders are punished before contact fully arrives. That's why Clark's translation argument is so strong. Her range isn't tied to a single line, it stretches past the arc no matter the rulebook, and her passing reads rely on anticipation, not perfect spacing. Bukers can thrive internationally too, but a player coming off a major knee injury is rarely at full burst, landing confidence, or finishing through bodies immediately. Zoom out, and the debate isn't who deserves it. It's whether basketball decisions are being made strictly on current readiness, or if reputation, relationships, and future planning are shaping the present more than anyone admits.
We got Paige Beckers. Breanna Stewart's not actually playing. We always talk about you got to be worried about the Connecticut bias because of the managing director, Sue Bird. And I think there was some feelings that Gino Auriemma made some comments that would lead you to believe that Paige...
Stephanie White understands the part of Clark's game that doesn't fit neatly in a stat line. It's the way one guard can tilt an entire defense before the ball even crosses half court. Clark forces early pickups, drags help too far, turns safe coverage into uncomfortable choices, and makes switches or doubles create open looks elsewhere. That kind of gravity is an offensive system on its own, and it's exactly what coaches argue for behind closed doors during rotation debates. But structure matters. Assistants can push a case, and the head coach may have preferences. Yet this cycle has a clear layer above the bench. Sue Bird's resume is unimpeachable. 5 Olympic gold medals, 4 WNBA titles, and a career built on controlling pace and moments. Her knowledge is never in question. What is harder to measure is the human factor, whether long-standing relationships and institutional familiarity subtly shape evaluation when fit becomes subjective. That's why this week is watched as more than a lineup debate. Clark represents disruption, not just popularity, but a proven ability to scale audience attention. She brought casual viewers into the ecosystem, turned regular season games into mainstream events, and proved that transcendent stars can change audience behavior. The question isn't talent, it's whether the system embraces that disruptive future or folds it back into comfort and tradition. Angel Reese adds a second layer, a basketball layer. She changes possessions, creates extra shots, fouls, and chaos. Clark changes geometry, stretching defenders into poor angles and speeding up decision-making. Together, they form a pairing that international teams hate, punishing zones with quick reads and punishing physical defenses with second-chance opportunities. If the staff treats Puerto Rico like a true lab, that combination should see real representatives, not cameo minutes. If they hedge for narrative management, they risk wasting the one thing qualifiers offer that the WNBA never does: a protected environment to test chemistry without fear of failure. International opponents won't treat this like a preseason scrimmage. These are disciplined national teams with continuity and defensive structure. They pack the paint, rotate precisely, and dare you to win with precision. When athleticism is neutralized by structure, the most valuable player is one who can solve problems quickly, shoot over zones, find tight windows, manipulate help, and stay calm under contact. A perfect scouting report for Clark. That doesn't make veterans optional. Kelsey Plum and Chelsea Gray bring irreplaceable experience. Plum has navigated international formats, including a 3x3 medal in Paris, while Gray knows Olympic 5x5 pacing and how FIBA possessions swing on a single decision. That knowledge matters, especially late in compressed games. What makes this roster interesting is the built-in safety net. Enough proven talent exists to experiment without the risk of a must-win scenario. If one starting look struggles, adjustments can be made. If one pairing doesn't click, it can be recalibrated. That's why a rigid hierarchy would feel like a missed opportunity. This is the week to test the modern lineup, not the safe one that Clark's presence guarantees attention. WNBA numbers already show the pattern. More viewers tune in when she plays, benefiting everyone on the court. How her role is handled is therefore highly consequential. The team reports to Miami for training camp March 7th to 8th, before traveling to San Juan March 11th to 17th. Practices are where the real depth chart emerges, where combinations are tested and responsibilities assigned. Kara Lawson will set the tone. Assistants will debate the details. Sue Bird will weigh everything and make the call. That decision will signal the program's philosophy. If Clark is treated as a secondary option by default, it says transformational impact can be managed downward for comfort. If she is empowered early, it signals that the program is willing to evolve with the sport it represents.
No, you guys know I'm just not going to say that. So we'll have to find out how this happens, how this ends up looking, because I don't know about you. Sixth person of the year, sixth person off the bench, Caitlin Clark does not have a ring to it for me. It does.
Maybe Clark starts, and this becomes a non-story. Maybe the rotations settle naturally, and the best fit wins cleanly. But the fact that fans are bracing for a politics conversation tells you something real about the moment women's basketball is in. The sport has entered an era where audience gravity is a form of power. And power always tests institutions. Music. Puerto Rico won't just show who is in shape or who runs the sets crisply. It will show whether Team USA is building around what the game is becoming or protecting what it used to be. Puerto Rico is not going to settle this with a press release. Music. It's going to settle it with possessions, because once the ball goes up, there's nowhere to hide. The rotations will tell you who they trust. The closing lineup will tell you who they believe in. And the point guard, music choices will tell you whether this program is chasing the next version of women's basketball or trying to keep the new era on a leash. If Caitlin Clark walks in and immediately tilts the floor, if the pace jumps, if the music, offense starts producing easy looks out of chaos, it becomes hard to justify putting that back in the box later. Stars like that, music, don't just fit into systems, they become the system.
For this team, I mean, come on. Let's not try to get cute here. And I could see them trying to get cute by doing the whole, well, she's returning from injury and yada, yada, yada. No, Caitlin Clark, I did a video, I don't know how long ago. It's been a while since she come out and said, I'm 100% ready to go.
When international defenses load up, when the paint gets crowded and the scouting gets real, the guard who can shoot over a zone, thread lasers into tight windows, and speed up decision-making becomes the difference between a comfortable win and a grind. On the other hand, if Paige Bueckers is handed the keys too early and the results don't match the role, the conversation won't stay about basketball. The optics will explode, the criticism will harden, and Team USA could spend the year answering questions that could have been avoided by letting performance, not familiarity, dictate the hierarchy. That's why the staff can't half-step this. Splitting minutes to keep everyone calm may seem reasonable, until you realize it can leave the team with no real identity. Chemistry is built through repetition. Leadership is built through clarity. And when Berlin arrives in September 2026, no one will care how carefully they managed headlines in March. They'll care about who can deliver gold when the margin tightens. Here's the simplest way to read it. Watch who starts, but pay even closer attention to who closes. Watch who gets the ball when the offense stalls. Watch who they trust when the opponent goes on a run. That's where the truth will reveal itself. This isn't just one tournament. It's about whether the gatekeepers of the sport are willing to let the new power structure exist in public. Clark represents the future, not because of hype, but because she has already changed the demand for the product. If the program embraces that, it sends a message that the best impact wins. Period. If they try to manage that impact into a secondary role, it sends a different message, one that fans are already tired of hearing. Either way, the answer is coming fast. And when it does, you know we'll be breaking it down play by play, lineup by lineup, and decision by decision. Tap in with Courtside Leaks and make sure you're subscribed, because the moment those rotations hit the floor in Puerto Rico, the real story starts. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.